Good evening, everybody. Beautiful Wednesday night and a good time to talk about the Psycho franchise. So, welcome in my autop stream brethren here. Starting off with the Psycho fanatic inside of our group, Bryan Lomax. Bryan, how we doing?
I'm good, yeah. Looking forward to getting into it. Norman Bates is my boy. Um, yeah, this is the you talk about the big three. Personally, I think Psycho, Norman Bates should be in the big three, and someone else should be out.
Who are
But
you taking out?
whatever.
You know who the answer is.
Sorry, CP, but
The
it's got to
the
be
guy with the most
gotta
films in a series. No, I get it. I get it. It's
the guy that started as a rip off of Halloween, but yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street is probably the most original of the three, so he's got to stay. And Michael Myers pretty much gave birth to the '80s kind of slasher. So I'm sorry, but Jason's got to go. Norman Bates,
and
he
and
takes
you,
his
you
spot.
you know, to be fair, Friday the 13th ripped off Psycho with the score in in the first couple of movies too. So yeah.
It's very big of you that you can
I
admit that.
listen. It's like junk. It's junk food. I like it. I know there's no nutritional value to it. I just
Hence all your health conditions.
too much Friday the 13th.
Yep. That's the one with the green bun. With all that being said, CP, how are you on this Wednesday evening?
I'm good. I'm happy to talk about films on a completely different channel and Psycho. Yay, Psycho. We're giving a sneak peek into 31 on 31 this year.
Absolutely. Yep. So if you guys are not familiar, as he already said, we released a teaser on CP's channel, and I talked about it in my reviews. So I'm sure a lot of you know, but Psycho is one of the franchises that we're doing this Halloween on 31 on 31. Bryan demanded it, otherwise he was leaving us forever. So we snuck it in there. But just like we've done with Child's Play and with Tarantino, we figured we'd get together. Bryan and I just wrapped up our review series at the same time. CP just recently rewatched all these, so we wanted to get together and talk about the whole franchise. So, starting off with the original Psycho, going all the way through to the '98 remake. And thank you for joining us. So, let us know in the chat what your thoughts are on these films as we go through them. Obviously, we'll stop for some super chats, but for the most part, we're going to be kind of focusing on the movie, so we're not intentionally ignoring the chat if we do at any point, but just follow along with us.
Yeah,
CP.
Brian's going to be talking a lot, so I'll be chat bitch as per always. So it's fine. Blame it on me. Yeah. So
Was your
what are we starting with? One, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Um, it's the film that most people would. I mean, most people who have a brain in their heads would say is the thing that got the slasher genre started. Some people would say it's Hitchcock's best film. I don't know if I would go that far, but it came out in 1960 and was written by Joseph Stefano. I've heard people call him Joseph Stefano, but yeah. Well, you're shaking your head, Brian. Do you pronounce it differently?
No, I pronounce it the way you pronounce it, Joseph Stefano.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did a short little thing on the shower scene years ago. A little 3-minute video on the shower scene and how important it was to horror in general.
Very good video as well.
What?
Very good video.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then Elijah Wood got a bunch of other people together and they made an entire film based on my little 3-minute principle idea. It's called 7852, which is a really, really good documentary. It blows my YouTube video out of the water. It's really incredible. That shower scene is really, really important to the slasher genre as a whole. I would even say, to follow the lines of this film, modern editing might not be the same if not for the editing in that Psycho scene, because they had to be so careful about what they were showing, and
Yep.
I guess the illusion was people thought they saw nudity and thought they saw penetration of a knife into flesh, but that never happened. If any if anything, that shower scene alone is quite important. Oh, by the way, you have another 80 minutes wrapped around that shower scene, which Jamie Lee's mother, whose name, I'm going
Janet.
Lee. When they spoilers, by the way, when they offer fairly early in that movie, that was a big deal. If you want to get an idea of what movies used to be, just look up YouTube videos about how people acted, or the special features on the Psycho Blu-rays about people, like how shocked they were that Janet Leigh got killed, and like just the reactions were just so over the top, and it was an experience.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the first time that's happened, but certainly set a precedent. Hello, Scream.
The first, damn it! You beat me to it. I was going to say actually the first time.
But no, it's brilliant.
It's just the thing is, it's a lot of elements within the horror genre in general that kind of get taken for granted now. So anyone who hasn't seen Psycho could be forgiven for if they went back to it and watched it now, thinking it was a bit rote, I guess. Like, what's the big deal? But it's like, you think about all of those things, all of those elements that are in it that feel rote. They only feel rote because so many movies since have copied them or aped them in some way, and it really did have such a huge impact on the genre. And it's like 10 years at least ahead of its time, because you get films like Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They didn't come till a decade later. They didn't come till the 70s. So that's young filmmakers growing up and thinking, Psycho.
It's funny, they always kind of, as far as timing's concerned, they always seem to compare it to Peeping Tom, which is a film that I've seen tiny bits of. I don't know if either of you have seen Peeping Tom, but that's a film that gets similar credit or gets thrown in arguments. I guess I'll make it my job to watch that movie, and then we'll talk about this in 18 months. But Peeping Tom was another one that I heard kind of got compared to Psycho for slasher revolutionaries.
Yeah, I mean, it was released in the same year, so
right.
Yeah, both 1960. So I perfectly accept, having not seen the film anyway, but I still perfectly accept that the two of them, the 1-2 punch of Psycho and Peeping Tom being released in the same year, pretty much began what we now refer to as the slasher genre. But it just pains me that both films kind of get forgotten. Yeah, Psycho even gets forgotten. Like, it's one of those films that is kind of mentioned respectfully because you've got to. If you're talking about classic horrors, classic slashers, we've got to name drop Psycho because you can't escape the fact that it is the granddaddy, so to speak. But then once you've named it, it's kind of like pushed aside, and we talk about the big three and things like that. But actually, no. Psycho is still, even today, you look at it, it's just a great film, regardless of age. There's certain things about it that have dated, clearly. Certain things that shouldn't have been copied in the exact same way in the remake because of how dated they are. But from a story standpoint, from a character study standpoint, from looking at the psychology of this guy, that, again, Buffalo Bill, you think about characters like that, I mean, all of them come from, like the likes of Ed Gein and things, real life serial killers like that. But you think about Ed Gein on film in celluloid, really, you trace it back to Norman Bates and any other kind of iteration of Gein or his ilk in cinema. It's kind of filtered through that that existence of Norman Bates being the classic icon of the guy who wears his mother's clothes and has a bit of a personality issue.
We've come quite a bit too, because that was like, oh, what a weirdo! He's wearing his mom's clothes. Like that was a big time shocker back then. Now it's a little different now.
Slightly.
Now we have it tucking his junk between his legs.
Signs of the lamps that hold my beer. Cody, you're quiet.
I was just listening. I get captivated when Bryan goes on, when he's either ranting or he's really calm. I'm like, but I actually didn't grow up with this one. Strangely enough, I saw the remake first, which is, I know it's a crime. When 98 came, my dad had rented the remake, and we sat and watched it. And as a kid, I loved horror. I was watching it, and I was kind of like, it's like, this seems like a really cool story and a weird, shitty movie. So I never really took the time to watch any of them. I almost Psycho's one of those movies where the story and the twists and a lot of the shots and the shower scene and the reveal is so almost common knowledge that I honestly can't remember when I first saw it. I know the first time that I willingly popped it in to really like analyze it, that was like 2 years ago. And for all I know, that might have been the first time that I watched it. But I watched it as far back as my memory goes. I watched it, and the first time it was more what Bryan was saying about it's a movie that you kind of respect, and you're like, all right, cool. This is where it all came from. I get, I get the appeal. I can see why it knocked the doors off in 1960. Didn't really resonate a whole lot with me watching it whenever I first did. And then whenever I rewatched it to do my reviews, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit more. It's weird when you do reviews sometimes. It's almost like you watch a movie differently. So I watched it, and I felt like the second half of the movie doesn't quite hold up as much to the first half, just because I don't find that the sister and the lover to be anywhere near as interesting of characters as Janet Leigh was as Marion Crane. But I liked the setup and the kind of non-conventional thing where you're spending all this time developing this character and putting her in this situation where you feel for her at the same time. You're kind of like, you're curious where it's going to go bad. That whole sequence where that cop is kind of following her around, she's trying to get the new car, and he's just kind of standing across the street. That's kind of unnerving. So there was a lot of those like shots in the movie that I picked up on the second time where I was like, man, this movie really just kind of has this sense of dread going throughout it, even before you get to the hotel or the motel. And then being a big fan of Psycho 2, I really kind of honed in on whenever we finally get introduced to Norman, and the fact that Anthony Perkins just perfectly delivers this character that is so like warm and inviting and just seems harmless, to the point where he's not a threat at all in any way, shape, or form. And then you get the one scene where she kind of suggests, why don't you put your mom in one of those places? And he kind of, the remake goes too far with it, but the original, it's very subtle. His tone of voice and the way that his cadence, how he talks, just changes slightly to let you know that he's a little bit pissed. And you start to you're like, something's weird about this guy. He still seems harmless, but he's got an edge here, and this is what brings it out.
That's
so
my favorite scene in the film.
Yeah,
actually, just because it's quite a long scene as well. It's like it's at least 5 minutes. It's somewhere between the 5 to 10 minute mark, and it's literally just Bates and Marion Crane talking, and you're getting all this stuff from them. Like there's a lot of surface stuff, but you're reading a lot underneath that about who they are as people and the struggles they've been through and what's brought Marion to the place she's at. And it's just it's brilliantly written, but it's brilliantly played. And like you say, when you look at the remake, it is one of the scenes that is completely mishandled by Vince Vaughn. I do happen to think Anne Hesh does pretty well with it, but Vaughn in particular, when he delivers this, it's so on the nose that I'm a psychopath. I am the psycho of the title. That like, and that's not there with Perkins when he
No,
when he
not at all.
delivers this scene. You get this sense of loss of because he's devoted his life to his mother who is ill. That you get this sense of loss from him, of life that could have been. So you sympathize with him, and it's only on a rewatch. It's only on the second watch that you realize there's something else going on there, which is that in fact he's masking the guilt of actually having killed her. But it's just there's just so much going on where once you watch it again, you start to be able to peel layers off with regards to the psychology of Norman and whatnot, and it's the main reason I think that I love the film so much and the franchise as a whole is that just how much depth Norman has as a character. The fact he does these heinous things, and yet you totally sympathize with him. You totally get that this is beyond his control, that he's kind of trapped within his psychosis, and the years of whatever torment he was put under through his mother, who clearly, had a spell over him, had a tight hold over him, and all that comes out in just the way Perkins delivers it, delivers the lines of dialogue and the body language and whatnot. It's not stuff that is like, thrown at you through tons of exposition or anything like that.
Well, what do you make of the peephole?
To me, that's... Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's just, I mean, Cody gave in his reviews for it again. That's another one that's really mishandled in the remake. I mean, I will say up front, anyone who's seen my reviews will know this already. I do like the remake. I've come around to it, but it's not a patch on the original, and it's seems like the one I just talked about, which was really mishandled by Vaughn, and also taking the scene where he peeps through the hole and actually showing us him masturbating. It turns him into a creep, whereas in the original, Norman's got this kind of childlike quality throughout the film, and it's one of the things that kind of endears you to him, and it's one of the things that makes you sympathize with him still, even once you find out what he's responsible for. And like showing that scene where he peeps through the hole, all it gives us is a sense that this is a guy who still has like a childlike curiosity. He's peeping on this woman, but he's not whacking off or anything, and it's like they take it far enough for it to obviously not be acceptable, but also not quite have crossed the line to the point where this guy's just a grade A creep and nothing more. And when you go to the remake, you couple this scene going full on masturbation with the scene that we talked about, just where he goes totally psycho. You see it coming out of him. The guy just comes across as instantly a creepy, unnerving weirdo that, quite frankly, would make Marion Crane run straight out of that hotel like her ass was on fire after 5 minutes of being with him. Whereas in the original, this is a guy that, okay, he's clearly got some mummy issues, but Marion feels safe around him.
The other thing too is, technically, for the first Psycho, you're led to believe that Norman and his mother are two different people. And sure, Norman might be peeping, but the person that does the killing in the shower looks like a woman. I mean, the big shocking reveal at the end is, it's a corpse with a wig.
So, it's Cherry Falls.
Yeah, I compared the peephole scene to the scene in the final chapter where Corey Feldman's jumping up on the bed. He's like, oh my god! It's like that, but it's an adult version. You know what I mean? It's exactly what Bryan was saying. That childlike curiosity that's the independent adult in him trying to fight its way out in a certain way where, mentally he's so tied to his mother and his, the house, and just kind of still thinking that she's there, but part of him still kind of longs for something else, and that's what makes Mother snap eventually and go into the shower.
Somebody said the other day, actually, I can't remember who it was, so I apologize if it was one of you guys or if it was somebody else who's watching.
If it was intelligent, it wasn't me.
No comment. So they said, with regards to the remake, what would have made it a lot more interesting is if when we got to the end, they changed it up so that it actually was his mother. So that we didn't have the twist that it was Norman Bates, but in fact they went a different route with it and have the mother genuinely be the killer. I thought that would have been quite interesting. I'm not saying it would have improved it for many people.
Yeah,
but
that or you let the girl die in the accident in the road instead of the little boy.
Yeah. That would have been particularly interesting because up to that point it would have been identically shot for shot for the most part. So then when it takes that huge left turn, you kind of would have set yourself up mentally for okay, I already know exactly what's going to happen because nothing has changed, and then all of a sudden, okay.
Yeah.
So that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll get to the remake in a bit. I'm gonna kill this dog. I'm gonna pull a Psycho with that damn dog. I don't know if he could hear it. So next was Psycho 2, which they waited a while.
Are we done with?
Oh, I'm sorry. I took the silence as we're done. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry, Cody. I didn't mean to take command there.
One of the other major characters that I really like is the house, of course, because the house itself does. It's a character in its own right in the first film, but it kind of is across the board with all of these movies, to be honest. And I like that they keep the same design throughout. Like you show a few stills from the Bates house from any of the four movies, and it's the Bates house. But I mean, I mentioned this in my review way back. I mean, it was quite a while ago when I released the review for the first one. But I just like I see the physical landscape of the house and the motel as being quite representative of the relationship between the mother and Norman. If Norman is the hotel and the mother is the house, you got this overbearing presence looking down over the motel, and it's just it is odd how these two buildings kind of. They almost become symbols for the people themselves. So you got this motel that is full of empty rooms, which is essentially Norman Bates in many ways. But there's so much in it in that regard that you can look into, and that's what I love about truly great films. When you get a film that's truly great that people really appreciate, it's for reasons like that where the further you dig, the deeper you dig, the more you find.
I want to know, at their happiest and fullest, how many members of the family were there in that Bates household? Because that's a big house for an only child and two parents, maybe at their strongest. Did aunts and like that? That's a huge house for a boy and his mother. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak to the logistics of just a waste of space.
Yeah, I love the house. That was one of the biggest things too that stood out to me. That whenever I was, I think when I was doing my Psycho 4 review, I was doing some research and saw that they had eventually tore the house down, and I was like, oh no, why would you ever tear that thing down? Yeah, I love that house, like just the gothic kind of look about it, and it's almost like when you look at posters of Psycho and everything, you usually see a Bates Motel sign or you might see Norman, but the house is always somewhere in any poster that you see of Psycho, pretty much. So it's just like Brian said, it is almost like a secondary character itself in the movie.
I think
in the series.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think they explore that a bit more in the second one, when Meg Tilly's All right, Brian, finish about the first one, and then I'll get to the second one.
Just another thing that kind of I like the tragic element of us as the audience finding out that Marion her intention was to head back and take the money back. Like she has this redemptive moment, and one of the things that makes her death so tragic is the fact that actually before she died, she'd made the decision to turn herself in, to take the money back. And it's something really tragic about that always gets me. Just this.
There's something tragic about the fact that all that money just got thrown away. That's what's tragic.
Down in the swamp. Well, they pulled it out at the end.
Did they find the money?
Somebody was about to get
I don't
rich.
know. They found.
Well, the movie ends with them pulling the car out. So I think unless the water destroyed the money, I assume, or the mud, but.
But it's just the idea that she doesn't get to have her redemption. We know she does with us because we know what she was going to do, but to the rest of the world, she'll just be seen as a crazy lady who tried to steal a load of money and got killed.
She got hers.
Yeah.
Cue Psycho 2.
Okay, so Psycho 2. 1983, they waited quite a bit, and directed by Richard Franklin, written by Tom Holland. Anthony Perkins returning to his role. Meg Tilly, remember? There used to be another Tilly that acted, and Meg was in this. They play right into the long gap of the 22-year passage of time, and that's essentially like what his sentence was, and he gets out of jail.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that are a little like, would you hire this guy day one out of jail? And this.
Well, in all fairness, they do completely explain why he gets hired. One, it's part of the rehabilitation program that has been kind of, the guy, his social worker, so to speak, has helped initiate that. But two, the woman who, again, spoiler alert, who claims to be his mother by the end of this film is the one who's kind of pushed for that as well. So all these forces have kind of come together to make that happen. So it's not just a random, he comes out, oh, can I have a job? Yeah, here you go. It's, this is stuff that has been being put into place through the fact, through the idea that this guy's getting released, he's part of the program, we need to reintroduce him into society, all that kind of stuff. So, but as far as sequels go, as far as one, building on what came before in a what is regarded by most as a classic movie, and two, also kind of finding your own identity that separates you as well from that classic movie and helps you to stand on your own. There are very, very few sequels to particularly to horror movies that I can think of that do it as well as Psycho 2 does.
Agreed.
Cody put Psycho 2 as his number one when he did his ranking video. I put the first film, but I got no problem with anyone putting Psycho 2 at number one. I totally understand it. It's just, for me, there was one little thing that maybe, it's just nitpicking.
You forgot to finish painting the hotel.
I think there's a moment where, clearly this made in 83. This is now. I think the reason they were able to make this to begin with was because of the likes of Friday the 13th and all the films that the original Psycho had kind of, inspired to begin with. That kind of reignited the flame of, oh, remember Psycho, the one that started this? Let's get that back. I think people, it was the right time to hit with it, really, if you were going to. And I think that where was it going?
One nitpick.
One nitpick,
Sorry.
yeah, and I think because of that, there is this element. It's basically it's the two teenagers in the basement that get
No.
done over, and I feel like that was it just feels like it's kind of shoehorned in there so that they can have the body count, so they can
Oh,
have the
like a slasher movie.
yeah, like a slasher movie. So it becomes more of a slasher than a thriller because like most slasher fans now would look at Psycho and say, well, it's more a thriller than a slasher. It's not really a horror film. It's a slasher. It's a thriller, and I'm like, dude, shut up, whatever. I've literally had people argue that Psycho is not a slasher film, and it's just like, get a grip. Um, yeah, yeah. So I feel like in order to kind of fit in with what was popular at that time, i.e. Friday the 13th, i.e. Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, all them, it's like we got to get a few body counts in here just to up the carnage and kind of wear that slasher crown, so to speak.
And that's a shame too, because I think the real gem of Psycho 2 is the way they portray Norman really with his mind playing tricks on him, like when he's at the diner and he's got the note that's written from his mom, but you know nobody else notices it. Like I've never, well, maybe not never, but it's been a while since I could recall somebody portraying that type of mind playing tricks on you where nobody else in the room is seeing it, kind of deal. Like, and it's a shame because that they covered that really well, where he was having trouble understanding if he was hallucinating, or if he needed. I mean, there was a couple of times where he said he needed to go back, and him on the phone with who he thought his mom was, and Meg Tilly at a certain point trying to sway him back, even though she was in there for interesting reasons to begin with. Super chat, Motorcycle USA 199, thank you. Psycho house on the list of spooky houses, what number?
Top three,
Yeah.
top five at least.
Yeah.
It's hard without a list. I mean, the Freddy's house, the Psycho house,
Yeah.
Amityville.
Yeah, that might be
Amityville,
the top
correct.
three. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one. Nightmare on Elm Street's Red Door is the door is what I give Nightmare on Elm Street. Psycho, that house is imposing.
I'm thinking more like Dream Warriors onward when I think of Freddy's house, like even the
all
paper mache
rickety.
house that she makes with the popsicle
Uh-huh.
sticks over the windows and
Yeah.
everything.
I certainly think the Bates house is the most iconic.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you can show that house without even seeing anything of Bates himself or any character from the movie for that matter, and you know what it is. Right away you know what it is. So yeah, I mean, and that's why they've kept the design so much. You look at other film franchises, they might be tempted to change up the design from film to film and not really bother too much about the continuity of that particular aspect. But no, with the Bates house, it was so iconic, you don't need to change it, and they bring it back each time. So
Yeah, going back to what you were saying about how that the movie kind of, or Norman's portrayed, like you're never quite sure if it's his mind playing tricks on him and everything. That's one of my favorite things about that sequel is that not only because it's basically a character study of Norman now, where the movie, the first Psycho wasn't necessarily Norman's movie. He was a piece of it, a very important piece, but this is him, where it's about him. It's about him, trying to heal, trying to move on. The movie kind of makes you ask questions of, does this person deserve to have a chance to move on, or does he not? Is he pretty much, that he's already, you know what I'm saying? Lost for words. But I like the fact that you never quite know, and even knowing the twist, and even knowing ultimately what's going on with Lila Crane and Meg Tilly and everything, you could still watch the movie, and even all the way up to the point where it's revealed that they're the ones messing with him. You never can quite decide which pieces are them messing with him and which ones are him messing with himself.
Yeah.
It's like even in the diner, like you were saying, whenever you get the the note from Mother.
Yeah.
Oh, Brian, we're not talking about the remake, Brian. But whenever you get the scene, whenever on the rolling ticket holder, that ticket disappears instantly
Yeah.
and never shows anybody like go and snag it or anything. So there's times where you're like, man, is he really losing his mind again? And especially towards the end of the movie, it's pretty much both full blast.
Yeah,
It's just a
it's neat to not know. It's neat to be an audience member and experience the same kind of lack of confidence and insecurity as I guess Norman's the protagonist in that movie, right? Yeah, to experience it through his perspective is really really neat.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I also like whenever you it just seems like a really great continuation for the sister, Lila Crane too, because I didn't care
that's
for her
right.
character too much in the first movie, but it's a nice little exploration of like obsession. And because the movie's about her just wanting revenge at all costs. I mean, she's basically, even though I think it is a little bit far fetched with how much she's willing to risk. That's one of my small nitpicks.
Yeah.
She's willing to just throw her daughter to the wolves. You know what I mean? Like, hey, go stay in this house with the psycho that killed your aunt, and sleep in the same room with him and everything like that, and we'll see what happens. Like, she's that mentally
Obsessed,
fixated and obsessed with her mission.
But to me, that's kind of what the film is about. I did an video essay on it over on my other channel, just all about that theme of bitterness, and how it destroys everything around you when because really she can't forgive what Norman did or what his other personality did, and because of her inability to let go of that bitterness, it completely consumes her at the expense of of everything else. It puts a daughter's life in jeopardy. It results in her being killed. It results in a daughter being killed. So it's just it's really a study on how bitterness and unforgiveness can just tear you apart and destroy us. So again, thematically, it's a film that's got something to say. It's a film that's got deep stuff going on with the characters, and that's why I love it. So
Nasco2345, $5 in the super chat. Thank you. Lomax and I love Boris Johnson.
I do.
All right, fair
He
enough.
gets my vote. I'll say that.
All
much,
right.
but we're not here to talk politics. So.
Yeah, can we just talk about movies? Just please, not politics. Psycho 2, like with all the themes that you're talking about, Brian, really is like it covers so many different bases. It literally is the perfect sequel for Psycho. And especially the fact, like, how often do you hear that, oh yeah, there's this sequel that's decades after the original that it just doesn't work, but like the time frame like really kind of fits into it. Like, all right, this is probably the amount of time he would spend in jail. He's getting out. And it's like you said, how would the victims' families feel if they thought he should have stayed in longer and all this other stuff, and the guy wasn't mentally secure with a lot of things. They covered it really is the perfect sequel. It's not like Universal was like, all right, let's capitalize, all the Fridays and Halloweens are kicking off. Let's get 26 kills, and they made a perfect sequel to Psycho, and they didn't. I mean, granted, they did do the weren't the kids even smoking pot in the basement?
Yeah, I think so.
We don't need those cliches in this series.
It was right out of Friday the 13th because they were getting ready to bone, and they were lighting up the doobie, and they were like, "Oh, what's that shadow over there?"
yeah. Blake G super chat $2. Someone's pooch is very talkative. Yeah, that's my downstairs neighbor. I apologize. I'm either gonna.
I do not miss neighbors in apartments.
Yeah.
Never
I'm
again.
sorry, guys. It's there's nothing
Oh,
I can do about it.
one
Oh,
more, one more CP before we move on with our next thoughts.
Motorcycle US 199. Thank you. Did Norman deserve a chance at redemption? That's a question and 2/3 right there.
Yes.
I think through the performance of Anthony Perkins in Psycho 2, especially, I would say yes. I would probably have a different opinion if I was like a relative of a
Yeah.
victim. But when you know what causes, I mean, when you know the whole story, if you take Psycho 4 and all those events as canon, when you know the whole story, the dude was a victim himself, and everything that he did was kind of out of his hands to a certain degree. He didn't realize he was doing it. He had no control over himself. So as long as you can lock away the part that was doing that, which they did in Psycho 2 until they busted the seams back open,
Yeah.
then yes. I mean, there's no way that they could quantify that, whether or not they did or not. But us as movie viewers, just talking strictly as the movies, I would say yes.
Yeah, there's definitely
I'd
was
say it's-
remorse. Like you got guilt and remorse. Like I bought that. Anthony Perkins really felt bad about how he was perceived and the things that happened, and was just trying to carry on and felt bad about things, and he so much so he was worried that he was starting to lose his mind again. Like, if he was such a cutthroat killer, he wouldn't care about that stuff.
But like, I mean, when the film came out, this is a conversation that has been had to death, I guess, over the intervening years. But this is something that was, and still is, very much up for discussion. Is the idea of when should a killer be let out? When should we forgive? When should we consider that they've served their sentence? Over here we've had the kids who killed the Jamie Bulger lad. That's it's raised so many questions over the years about because they got let out. And they've been put back into society, and no one was told, and it kind of it all came out, and it's just like that really set people off. So this idea of that is central to this film, of Norman being let out and Marianne's sister being, like Lila being so hell bent on getting him put back in. That's something that happens. It happens in life, not to the extent that they go and start playing tricks, but certainly in some cases to the extent where people would go and track these people down to try and kill them or put some kind of harm onto them. So it is a question that is a touchy one, I think, for a lot of people. But I think what a film like this does is allow you to look at it from an objective level, not from the level of someone who you killed my whatever. So I'm
prepared to
I want
die.
vengeance. Yeah, now prepared to die. But from an objective level of saying, like, well, what are the facts of this case? The facts are that this guy is not in his right mind. That is not something he can control. You cannot control what your brain does. If your brain chooses to develop a split personality, that's it. It does it. That's out of your hands. So, yeah.
It's a horrifying
The answer
thought.
to the original. Yeah. Answer to the original question is I think he does deserve a chance at redemption, and people kind of take that away from him by the end of the film. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it all depends.
Are you guys? What are your thoughts on the final twist revealing? Was it Mrs. Spool, to be his actual mother? Obviously, they retcon that in the movie we're about to talk about, but taking it as is before Psycho 3 comes along, what's your thoughts on that as an ending?
I actually don't mind it. I like it, and I also like the retcon. I'm fine with both. It serves the story. It gives us, again, like I was saying before, a way for Norman to reintegrate into the community. gives us a valid reason for why this woman would be so interested in him and to get him the job, so to speak. And two, it gives us the other killer. Without her, we don't have another killer. So someone has to be running around this house doing away with these people, and it ain't Norman. Three, it gives us it gives us someone for Norman to essentially do that switch on at the end. I mean, that moment when he smacks her over the head with the spade is just it's absolutely brilliant. It was one of the first moments from Psycho that I remember, actually, and it wasn't from this film that I'd seen it. It was from part 3.
Didn't he double fist her too? Didn't he put poison in the tea as well as the just in case?
Yeah. So it's just I think her character. It's not like, I don't feel like it's shoehorned. I feel like it's a twist that has been built into the fabric of the film, so it doesn't feel. I hate to use the word forced, like a lot of people say. It's just, it doesn't feel like they've had to force this element in order to make it work. It feels like it's a natural kind of process of where we are with this story. So, but then when they...
Sorry, believe in the hype, $2 in the super chat, thank you. Where would American Psycho rank in this franchise? Top half?
It would, it would probably rank number 3 for me.
I haven't seen it in so long, but yeah, I'm probably gonna say number 3.
Yeah.
It's a weird little addition there.
Yeah,
though.
it's
just by name.
Yeah, in case you don't know,
great film.
American Psycho isn't a part of the I've heard that before. Somebody who thought American Psycho and American Psycho 2 were part of the Psycho universe.
Really?
That's not a fresh opinion. I've heard that before, but they're not related.
Really from someone that hasn't seen Psycho or American Psycho, it's pretty distinguishable. But I like. I talked about it a little bit in my reviews. I was kind of mixed on it, and then I was kind of mixed on the retconning. But after sitting on it, I think I like the twist with Spool being, trying to reveal herself as the mother with the retcon being in place in 3, because where I was mixed on it is that there's such a iconic bond between Norma Bates and Norman Bates that it kind of felt like a betrayal of that to suddenly say, oh, she wasn't really your mother, it's this other woman. But when you have the retcon, it reestablishes that, and it also kind of sets up the themes of Psycho 4 of this hereditary sickness, because not only was his mother sick, and not only was he sick, but now if you're believing Psycho 3, and if you watch Psycho 4 as 2 and 3 being canon in that, then you also have the aunt who was sick too. So it's like a family of wackos and just some kind of a gene that just keeps going through.
Which is hereditary. That gets passed in genes. Those characteristics.
That's the main theme and the main question. If the question of this one is can Norman find redemption, the question of part 4 is that whole nature versus nurture thing. Are our actions dictated by our genes, or are they dictated by our upbringing, by the way we've been raised? And so, but again, we'll get there when we get there.
So next is Psycho 3, which came out in '86, directed by Anthony Perkins, and written by Charles Edward Pogue, Pogue.
Sounds
I'm
right.
Not very familiar with his work otherwise.
Pogue.
But yeah, this it was a sequel. I mean, 1 and 2 were so good, but I don't know where you. It's a bit of a.
I think there's 2 ways to come at it, and it's like if you just look at this as a sequel to what is the quintessential classic Hitchcock and slasher film, followed by a sequel that many would argue is just as good, if not better, then yeah, this is a bit of a disappointment. But if you stack this up against other slasher sequels, like if you look at the big slasher icons, like Leatherface and Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and all these others, and look at the sequels we get on the whole from them. There are some pretty piss poor sequels. It's got to be said. Sure. The slasher genre isn't particularly famous for churning out grade A sequels that live up to the originals. And I think when you compare this as a sequel to those, I think it holds up pretty well. I think it's actually quite solid. Again, not on a par with the first and second film, but it's still a solid sequel. It's got some interesting ideas in it. It's got some pretty nice cinematography, I think.
I'll actually agree with you there. That was the one thing I noticed rewatching it. Like, good use of color. Yeah.
Also, music by Three Billboards composer and In Bruges composer. Can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but yeah.
I award you no points.
Yeah. Carter Burwell?
Carter Burwell. Yeah. That's it. Carter Burwell, yeah.
He did the score for this, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, yes, he did. I love his scores for both In Bruges and Three Billboards, but yeah. I can't say I particularly love his score for this. I like most of it, but there are some dodgy kind of choices that he makes at times. There's the bit when the main woman, comes into the restaurant and Norman sees her, and then we have this kind of tribal, almost like African tribal dance music thing going on while we see her in slow motion. Wrong film. That bit of music should not be in this film. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's pretty good. Dean Cundy was it who did cinematography to Psycho 2. I don't know who did for 3.
Give me a second, I can get it. Yep. Internet is Bruce Surtees.
Yep.
That guy.
Either way, I like what he does with the lighting, particularly towards the end when we get the really saturated reds and greens. It does look really nice. I think the biggest thing that I notice there's two major things that really let this film down. I would say that this is probably the least strongest performance.
Weakest? You mean weakest?
Yeah, not weakest. That's what I mean. This is probably it's half midnight now. I'm getting
dude. I'm like that at 2 p.m. I don't know your excuses.
So it's I'd say it's his weakest in the franchise. I still like him as the character, but I feel like the burden of having to direct the film as well as star in it sometimes takes its toll on his performance. There are times when it looks like perhaps his mind ain't quite on the acting as much as it should be. But that being said, there are times when he injects some nice bits of humor in it that I like. Not humor to the extent where it's like, It Chapter 2 ruins It Chapter 1 because the tone is completely different. It becomes a comedy instead of a horror. No, it's just some nice little natural moments there that don't overdo it, but are quite humorous, like the bit with the hand in the ice tray and him trying to kind of keep it out of people's sight.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I powered through 1 through 4.5 over the course of 2 days, and the real quick, one thing that kind of shocked me, and I always notice it for some reason. 1, 2, whatever, 3. lot of nudity in 3, all things considered. And it wasn't just one thing, it was a couple of times some really, really heavy duty scenes that, it just it felt out of place, and it felt a little smutty. Like I'm not, it felt like they were trying to be,
the movie's got a bit of a sleazy tone to it. When you have the what's
Jeff
his name?
Fahey's character,
is it Duke or something? Whatever that guy's name is with the guitar.
He
kind of has that sleaziness. The movie starts off with him like not really rape, but like aggressively pushing towards the nun character, and I mean it would have been if it went all the way through. It was pretty close, but even down to the point where it's the first time you actually get to see, a full-on sequence with Norman as Mother, with the wig and the weird smile and everything like that. So it's definitely got its own tone. It sets itself apart from the other ones. It feels very close to 2 with the look and the style and everything like that, but it has a sleazier tone to it than the other 3.
Well,
it kind of repeats a lot of the elements of the first film as well. Like this was the first Psycho film that I actually saw, but I think I watched it when I was about 14, and I already had knowledge of the original Psycho, having never seen it at that point. It's still, Psycho's one of those films where it's so iconic that even if you've never seen it, there are certain elements about that film that happen. Marion Crane cops it in the shower. That Norman Bates is revealed to be the killer. So it's like this film comes on like like late at night. I didn't even know it was Psycho 3. I don't think, because I think I'd probably missed about 5 minutes of it. I came into it just as Nun Lady was getting into the car with Fahey, and I kind of watched it from there. And obviously, as it went along, I'm like, oh, this is Psycho. This being my naive.
This isn't the Lawnmower
self.
Man. What's going on here?
So I'm like, this is Psycho, but I didn't know it was Psycho 3. In my head, I'm like, oh, this is Psycho, isn't it? This must be Psycho. I'm sure. And so I'm thinking, oh, this woman, this nun woman, she's the one who's going to get it in the shower, And there is that moment where we see her, running the shower, and we see, peeping through the hole and all that. Again, callbacks to the original, and it's like, but then the kill doesn't happen. She doesn't get killed in the shower, and at that point I'm confused, because I'm like, I'm sure that this is iconic for when she gets killed in the shower. So there's stuff like that where it's elements that, even as someone who hadn't seen the first one, I had these expectations about it, thinking that it was the first one in many ways. So I think, again, that's a bit of a weakness as well, the fact that it does do so many callbacks to the original, because all that serves to do is highlight the fact that actually the original did it better. But yeah, and also her character, the nun character, I can't even remember the name of the character, to be honest, but I feel like she's a bit weak. She's not written particularly well. Like we get to the end, and I feel like she makes so many stupid decisions where you're at the point at the end where you're almost like, you know what, you deserve to die. You're stupid. Right. So she kind of brings that on herself. But yeah, as a Psycho sequel, I think it's disappointing. As a 80s slasher, as one of those 80s switch it on, see who gets slashed up, see where our main character goes, it's entertaining. I will watch it again. I enjoy many aspects of it. Jeff Fahey is actually quite amusing in the film.
Really?
I do enjoy him. Yes, because he is just a sleazebag. He's meant to be, and he plays that up to the hill.
But why did he stick around, though? Like, if he was just trying to make some extra dough to get through whatever, I mean, like...
Blackmail.
Oh, right.
It's not just extra dough, because if you remember, he blackmails him with when he's in the room and he's found his mother, and he's got his mother, and he's like... Yeah, but, I mean, like, I like the line when he's getting beaten to a pulp, and he still manages to say, watch the guitar. He's got this thing about keeping the guitar safe. But no, I like it. It's fun. That's what I'll say. As far as the Psycho movies go, I would say this is probably the one I have most fun with. Is it rich in themes and deep character study? No, but it adheres to the 80s kind of tropes of what slasher movies became, and in that regard, I just enjoy it. I can throw it on, I can watch it, and like I say, it was my introduction to the series, to the franchise as a whole. Is it a patch on the first two? Not even close. No.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Okay, it's a decent enough sequel. Like I said, there's some entertaining bits about it. The sleaziness, definitely Jeff Fahey's character. But the biggest thing, it didn't stand out to me so much the first time that I watched it. But before I went to review it, when I watched it for the second time, it really bugged the piss out of me. The biggest thing that holds it back for me is it just feels like the nun character is such a waste. And all the opportunity that they set up for the first half of that film with her having this crisis of faith for reasons they don't get into, and the extreme crisis of faith to the point of suicide, and then Norman having this crisis to where he's being pulled back in by Mother, but now he's almost more aware that Mother is not real. So it's like this crisis going on with him. There's so much potential there for this romance, and how are these two characters gonna fix each other or make each other worse? What's going to happen? And then she just gets knocked down some stairs, and it's like, wow, that's it. And it feels like the big thing that this movie was trying to do, and I don't know if they just didn't know where to take it, or if they were trying to go for shock value, like, aha, just kidding, we're not doing anything with her. But that's the biggest thing that annoys me about this movie, is it just feels like such a waste. But it does have one of my favorite sequences in the entire franchise. And whenever you get Norman Bates, whenever he's revealed his mother, and he's got the creepy smile and he's chasing the woman around, and the way that it's shot, especially where even though we've seen his face now, it goes back to keeping her in shadows, and she's kind of coming up the stairs and has this really creepy vibe to her, and she knocks a picture and she's going after her and still has time to straightens it. Little details like that that's one of my favorite sequences in the whole franchise, and that's the only time you get to see Norman as Mother. Unless you count the early flashback scenes in 4, but we'll get there.
I thought it was a significant step down.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it is. It's a time capsule. You could tell that they were trying to capitalize on this mid 80s slasher craze. Like I said, the nudity was so where I was like, oh right, this is technically supposed to be a horror movie, and there's just stuff that you don't need to lean on stuff like that to have a good movie. Sorry guys, I know the horror community hates when I say stuff like that, but you could have a Jessica Biel in Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Gorgeous, looks fantastic, doesn't show anything naughty. You can pull it off. It's just much to our demise.
Now I understand Brian's problem with the movie. Stars have aligned.
But yeah, like
it has nothing to say.
Whoa, with Jessica Biel,
nothing to show either, apparently.
But yeah, I'll save my further opinions because I'm still tossing and turning. There's a couple of picks that I have here that my 31 on 31 is not in ink, and I'll say that Psycho 3 is in pencil, and I'm not really sure even within the franchise where I have it, because it's vastly disappointing. And I really don't like Jeff Fahey's character. The nun character really just like the bootleg wife from Pet Sematary. That's all I kept thinking. What's her name from Star Trek? Motorcycle US 199 in Super Chat. Mind screw question: how does Norman keep ownership?
I'm presuming of the house.
Oh.
The motel.
estate.
Because movie.
Well, yeah, no.
Yeah.
In 2, somebody else is running the motel, right?
Yeah,
Dennis
it's like the
Franz.
state seizes it and holds it for
Yeah.
him somehow. It's a little strange. I don't know. That was a small logic issue that I have with two, but it's necessary. You can't have a Psycho movie without the
Hmm.
house and the motel, but I don't know. It's script
Yeah.
convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do they keep reopening
In,
Crystal
in,
Lake?
in reality, it would probably be seized and sold
Yeah.
off and everything.
Yeah, that's real world stuff. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they could sell it off. Like if his family owns it, it's their property. And the crimes he was convicted of are crimes dealing with mental health rather than personal choice, so to speak. So I'm not sure that they'd be able to seize it and then sell it in that regard. Because it's not like it's not like he owns that house because of a profit he's made through the crimes he committed knowingly. It's his property. So
Yeah, it is an interesting question. I got nothing. I know that much. Which leads us to Psycho 4, which was released in 1990, directed by Mick Garris, written.
yeah, of Critters 2
Oh
fame.
boy. and written by Joseph Stefano.
I know it's going to be demanded on next year's 31
Oh
on 31.
boy. You had your demand, Brian. This was it. I hope you enjoy it.
That's your one for life.
Hey, I wanted Critters on the original 31 and 31.
The original.
We're doing the
Yeah.
big three. So
Okay, so Psycho 4,
Direct to Showtime, right?
something like that. A nudity again. Olivia Hussey, all those years later, just doesn't know how to act still when it comes to being flustered.
come
Dude,
on.
when she's screaming and all like angry and discombobulated, I could literally hear her from Romeo and Juliet, just like the same, just loud and over the top.
Do you not think it's more the language barrier or the accent barrier?
Oh yeah, that
I don't
peeks
know.
through at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not why I hate. I don't hate the movie. It's just Olivia Hussey. At times, I was like, tone it down.
I felt like a lot of that was intentional.
Yeah.
I think she does a pretty good job of showing us this overbear. It's a hard character to play, I think, when you know because there's nothing really redemptive about her in any way. She tortures this guy, you know. You look at her and just think this is literally the worst mother ever. You know, it's like, yeah, you look at what she's doing, the abuse, the mental abuse.
Did we need the sexual shit? Like that was something that I really felt like they didn't have to do. Like when she got all mad at him and made him dress like a girl because he had an erection or something, or he like that was strange. Like I don't think that was necessary.
I'd actually kind of disagree with you.
Really?
On that one, to be honest. Really? Yeah, because it's the whole point is he's playing into the Oedipal complex stuff, isn't it? And it's like without that link there of not because Norman's someone who is essentially confined to this house. You know, he's not someone who's allowed a social life. You know, whenever some girl comes along and unbelievably bats their eyelids at him, he's kind of pulled away from it by his mother. He doesn't have much experience in the way of having to interact with women. So everything that he knows and learns about the opposite sex kind of it comes filtered through his mother. And
but if she's jealous of him, interacting with other girls, then why would she be bothered by him being turned on by her?
Because for her it's not a sexual thing. And when she realizes at the moments when it does become a sexual thing for him, that that disgusts her on multiple levels. But,
Poor Norman.
what one of them
getting friend zoned by the mom. That's terrible.
but it's like that's her own guilt as well.
Yeah.
I think her own guilt has a big part
You think
to play
she felt
in
guilt?
in her reaction to. I don't think you could feel anything else. As someone she's done this to her son. She's kind of made him who he is.
She's a rotten character in that movie.
Rather than taking that on, rather than acknowledging that guilt, taking it on, taking the responsibility for the damage you're doing to your child, she puts it all on him, which hence the reason she then dresses him in a dress and deflects that guilt away, puts it all on him and makes him feel shame, rather than actually, having the conversation that parents should have with their kids. So, whatever. But it's just, I do think it's one aspect, the sexual aspect of what is a very twisted, messed up relationship, which kind of needs to be shown in order to show why Norman is so messed up on every level. Why he isn't able to maintain relationships like a normal person.
I guess my point is, there's some stuff that like we can kind of connect the dots. You didn't have to show us all of that. Like, I mean,
that's kind of the downside with prequels, though, isn't it? That's always my issue with prequels, is they tend to answer questions that you weren't necessarily asking, and even maybe give you answers that you prefer your own answers to. They kind of have to do that. They have to elaborate to the point of almost giving too much, because that's just kind of the cross to bear when you're doing a prequel. Everybody knows he's psycho because his mom was abusive. So if you just show, oh, she's an abusive mom, and that's as far as it goes, then okay, we knew that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they kind of have to push the boundary a little bit.
It's certainly better than Leatherface as far as prequels go. Put it that way. And again,
prequel?
it's
there's a couple.
But it's that thing again, which is what I love about this franchise. A reason I do find it to be a cut above most other slasher franchises is that it is about something. It is asking questions. It is that whole, because that's why we have the radio stuff with modern day Norman Bates. Because it's a film of two halves. You've got the present day stuff and then the flashback stuff, and both of those things work together to, as I was saying earlier, ask this question about nature versus nurture. The flashbacks pin it all on nurture, whereas
wasn't Norman Bates starting? Wasn't Anthony Perkins already starting to get sick? And they kind of forced their hand, which is why he was basically shooting in one location for most of the movie. Wasn't he already sick when they started filming that?
Someone said in the chat earlier that he got sick right around the time that they were doing 3.
Oh.
So it had been a while, I think.
Yeah.
But I think the fact as well that it is a made-for-TV movie probably has a lot to play into that. And yeah, maybe they were able to coax him back because they were able to promise that, you'll be confined pretty much to one location. It's essentially a stage play for what he's got to do. But yeah, it's just, you jump to the radio show stuff, the present day Norman Bates stuff, and that radio show is having that discussion about, again, does Norman deserve redemption? If it's nurture or nature, is it really his fault? And who's to blame there? And I just think it asks questions that perhaps films of this genre maybe don't ask enough, or maybe aren't asked about getting into because they're too busy flashing boobs and hacking up teens. So,
yeah.
Awesome.
What's the problem?
Do you guys what do you prefer in Psycho 4? What's the part of the story that intrigues you the most? The prequel side, which is the predominant side of the movie, or the little bit of progression and the ending that we get for the Anthony Perkins version of Norman?
I really am split 50-50 on it. I don't. I mean, I know you're different on this, Cody. You really want to stick with the modern day stuff and not the flashbacks. But when I'm in the flashbacks, I don't feel in a rush to get back to the modern day stuff. And when I'm in the modern day stuff, I don't feel in a rush to get back to the flashbacks. So I kind of I think they complement each other pretty well. I enjoy seeing where Norman came from. I enjoy the non-linear way in which it's done, because even in the flashbacks, they're not told in order. They kind of jump all over the place. But no, I'm happy. I mean, clearly, Perkins gives the best iteration of Bates out of the two. You know, we've got the kid from E.T. playing the young Norman Bates. But I don't think the guy disgraces the character. I think he does a perfectly admirable job of. You know, I think he probably does a better job than Vince Vaughn does. But I don't know. It's I'm 50-50 with regards to which side I like best. I'm happy in both.
Bryan, can you give yourself about an inch or two of headspace? I don't know if your laptop is moved. Oh, okay. That's it. Thank you. Sorry.
CP, which do you prefer?
Well, I'd be a hypocrite if the guy who wants to see the Pamela Voorhees story would say anything but the prequel end of it. It was neat to see. Some of it was unnecessary, but I you know, it was good to see. I liked it. I actually wasn't too enamored with the phone, like him calling in a radio show, and like it felt very TV movie, which it was. But you know, it was. I do feel they went a little far in places with just how terrible Norman's mother was, but I liked seeing it. It was a different perspective on something that. It's not like, you know, the one thing you can't really blame these movies, you can't blame on these movies, is that they're not like really repetitive. There's something different that we're going over, especially with Norman's character in each of the first four movies. And you know, Psycho 4 just happens to give you the beginning before one, and you know, it's nice to see something different. The phone call stuff, just, you know, him calling in and you know, the ending of it, it just I liked the flashback stuff a bit more. Nasgoat 2345, $5 in the super chat, thank you. Lomax needs to free Tommy Robinson.
I don't know who Tommy Robinson is. Sorry.
Well, figure it out and free him.
Is that another political thing?
It might be. I don't know.
I have no idea who either of the names that brought up are. But
Go Time Now. Sorry, I just got asked a direct question there. Go Time Now wants to know when my Terminator reviews are going to be posted. They're going to be posted next week. Thank you.
Can't wait for Terminator Rise of the Machines. Yeah, Psycho 4, it was funny because it was kind of I think I had such low expectations for it. The fact that nobody talks about Psycho 4, most people probably don't even realize there's a Psycho 4. I knew it was a TV movie. I walked into it when I first watched it, which was sometime last year whenever the little Best Buy 4-pack came out. I watched it, and I think I had such low expectations that I actually enjoyed it a decent amount. I was like, you know what? For a TV movie, and for a kind of an unknown, the dark horse, the redheaded stepchild of the 4 original movies, it wasn't too bad. Now, when I watched it the second time, I wasn't as hot on it.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's just kind of my own thing. I'm just not a big fan of prequels. There's very few that I really enjoy. I tend to get annoyed with prequels over explaining and over answering things that I tend to like the wondering. I tend to like putting the pieces together myself, and more times than not, like I kind of referenced earlier, the answers that we get, I tend to prefer my own answers to the ones that they give. Um,
I've I,
not a
I've heard people say erase Part 4 and watch Bates Motel, the television series, instead. That I don't know. It's 5 seasons worth. It's something I've heard.
I don't know.
I'm not. You know.
It doesn't work at all because it's modern day, and the
Oh
way that
right.
everything
Yeah.
goes. The final season is completely different.
Don't kill the messenger. I
So
was just.
yeah. Um, and where was
I'm
I
sorry.
going? You're good. You're good. I'm not a big fan of the actor from E.T. I've never really seen him in anything that, aside from E.T., that I've enjoyed him in. Not that I've seen everything that he's done, but he's just one of those actors that has always never really done it for me. So I'm not really big on his version of Norman. I find it very strange that all these women are like sexually obsessed with this guy almost immediately, and he's just the most awkward. He doesn't even have that like Anthony Perkins had like a certain handsome allure to him whenever you see
I'll
him
say.
in the 1960. So you look at the kid, and the kid's just kind of awkward and quiet, and it's like, why does everybody want to fuck this guy? And so it's a little weird when you watch the flashbacks, and it's just him and random women. Um, as far as the sequel side of the storyline, though, and this is, I don't know if this is the first movie to do it. I doubt it, but it is one of the few prequel sequels. So that's kind of a nice little touch. I did like, even though it's a repetitive way that they tell the story, I did like the progression of his story with him being married to one of the doctors, and being so afraid of having a child that he's willing to murder his wife, and where it all kind of closes out. I think it's a really nice way to close out the character, that he's finally rid himself of his mother, and he's kind of the nature versus nurture thing that Bryan was talking about. He's willing to bet on nurture, and continue on. I like that as an ending for this arc and this version of Norman. So there's things about it that I like. Rewatchability, it's probably the one that I'll pop in only if I'm doing a marathon.
Blake G, $5 in the super chat. Thank you. Bates Motel is the ultimate Oedipal exp. Oedipal ex.
Oh, with Oedipal.
Yeah, that. But man, I loved it. Had all the feels. That
Yeah.
Oedipus complex, right? Uh, yeah.
Big words.
How do you pronounce that? Oedipal?
Oedipus. Edible.
Edible.
All right. Yeah, don't put words like that. I don't like all those vowels together. Thank you.
Blake making us pull out Google and shit.
There's smoke coming out of my nose right now. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, Bates Motel is great. If it wasn't for the fact that I just don't have the time to revisit it, I would have loved to review those seasons along with the movies too, because it's a fantastic show, and it just gets better as it goes along.
Breaking Bad syndrome.
Yeah.
If that does it for 4, we're going to go right back to 1. As far as Gus Van Sant is concerned, Psycho 1998, directed by Gus Van Sant, written by Joseph Stefano.
Because it's the same script.
No, you see Anne Heche's butt crack fully parted in that shower scene. It's very different.
Wow.
So-
well, I'll start this one, I guess. Yeah, it's weird. It's a very weird movie because, and it's kind of like you have Bryan's stance where, yes, it's a shot-for-shot remake, but if it's the same script, if it's basically the same movie minus a couple of details, can you really call it a bad movie? And then you have the other side of the argument where it's like, do you give credit for somebody who's literally copy and pasting a classic? And that's kind of the debate of the movie. The people that say it's horrible tend to land on this side. People that like it tend to land on this side. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't really understand the point of shot-for-shot remakes, only in a sense that if you're taking like a foreign film and you're doing a shot-for-shot in English, like kind of how they do I don't think it was shot-for-shot, but Let the Right One In to Let Me In, or there's movies that they have done that to that I can understand the merit there because there's a lot of stubborn people that won't ever watch a foreign film, and there's a big market for. I've always heard about this film, but I'm never going to watch it. But there's an English version coming,
Mm.
so I get that. But just taking a classic and doing the same exact thing, they did it with The Omen. It just, I just don't understand the point of it. I'm like, I would always prefer to watch the original, but there are some details about this modern, well, 1998 modern one that I did prefer slightly. I liked Julianne Moore's version of Lila
Mm.
better. I thought she had more attitude to her, and I was more interested in her as a character in that second half than I was the original actress. Same with Viggo Mortensen. I didn't mention that in my review because I was just everything else, but I Viggo Mortensen's awesome, so I'm more captivated watching him than Sam Loomis for the original. I actually really preferred William H. Macy's version
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
Harbogast. I love William H. Macy to death, but to me, he kind of found that perfect mix of modernizing the character, but holding on to that classic appeal with the fedora and kind of the old school detective thing. It feels very throwback, but it feels more modern. And his interactions with Norman and everything, I really liked his version. Um, and that's, unless I'm forgetting it, that's pretty much where it ends as far as things that I prefer. Everything else, it just kind of felt like it didn't quite measure up. Like I don't feel like a lot of the shots in the movie land the same in color as they did in black and white,
Mm.
namely the shower scene. A lot of
Vince
those
Vaughn
black and
isn't
whites, and
isn't
of course,
matching
yeah,
up.
that
Yeah.
that's the big one is Vince Vaughn is just that was kind of the let's miscast Vince Vaughn era of his career. Um,
Yeah,
and
it's the biggest downside for me is Vince Vaughn. I think if they could have cast someone more akin to the physical characteristics, shall we say, of and personality traits of Perkins.
oh, not 6'5"
Yeah,
or whatever he
not
is.
not the guy who at the time held the world record for tallest leading man in Hollywood. Yeah, I just yeah, he for me he's the biggest bugbear. I thought like when I first saw this, I like when I was 14, I watched Psycho 3. That kind of really compelled me to go out and check out the classic, Psycho, which obviously I already knew about, so much so that it kind of shaped the way my expectations about the film that I thought I was watching. When I was watching Psycho 3. But
Well,
because I became a fan kind of like after watching that original Psycho, it became like one of my favorite films. And then in '98, obviously the remake came out. I saw it, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I couldn't see the point. I just thought it's absolutely pointless. Biggest pile of pointless bollocks I've ever seen in my life. There was no point.
what? Let
So
me intervene for a second. Why do you think
mhm.
we do that with art? That something, if it's replicated, is a big no-no. If I had the recipe to KFC, and I couldn't get Emily a bucket of KFC chicken, but I knew the recipe and replicated it, and managed to give her something pretty close to that original recipe, she wouldn't make a stink about that. It's the same thing. So what? Why? Why is there a stink about stuff when it's art that's replicated in the similar fashion?
I think it's people's expectation of creativity. Whenever you see the original or the first time or whatever, you enjoy it for what it is, whether it be scary, funny,
Mm-hmm.
exciting, and you give all the credit for the person originating that and bringing that to life. When somebody does the same exact thing, it's kind of like when you're in a room and you say a joke and somebody says the same joke louder and everybody laughs.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's like, okay, it's still funny when you say it, but
It's
it's not you.
because yeah,
Yeah.
it's because somebody when somebody made that first piece of art, they did so because they had something to say.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when you get a remake, it's not done scene for scene because the person who remakes it does so because they feel that maybe they have something different to say with the same story. Like they appreciate the original, they like the characters and this, that, and the other, but they feel like they've got something else to say, which is why they do a remake, but they change certain things. So if you're doing a shot for shot remake, it's like as an audience member, like on a subconscious level, if not, an overtly conscious level, you're kind of thinking, well, what are you saying? Because at the moment, you're not saying anything that wasn't. You're taking someone else's literal ideas, expression, I guess.
Right.
Like Cody said, you're stealing someone else's joke and kind of taking the credit for it. But I feel like with the expression of ideas, it's like art is an extension of the person. It's like I don't know about you, but if I have music on in the car, it's a track that I really like. If somebody else in the car disses it and says it's crap, it almost feels like an attack on me.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a personal thing. The thing that we love, the artworks that we love, song, movies, whatever, they become internalized, they become part of our personality, our expression of our personality. The things you like essentially are who you are. That's how we, navigate our way around different social groups and things like that, the things we love. So I think there's so much about identity, people's identity caught up within the artwork that they produce, that to steal that is to steal their identity.
Yes. All right. So, but let's just say there's somebody who was born in the year 2000, knows nothing of either films, and just somehow by accident sees Psycho 98 first, and they enjoy it. What, is that a crime? I mean, it essentially is the same thing. So,
I don't think it's a crime, but I think it's the purpose. I think that's the purpose of making a film like this, is that you do bring it to a modern audience. There are, it's sad to say, there are many people who will not go back and watch the old classics because they're black and white. That's it. It just doesn't do it for
You could
them.
also say the same thing about music too, though, where people do a straight cover of something and not really add much at all. They'll just do a cover of a song and people recognize that. I don't know. My point is I don't think it's so black and white. Excuse the pun. With stuff like this.
Well, it's just like when I watched it this time, I watched it for the review series I've just done. It was only the second time I've ever seen it, and I went to it literally in my head. I was already going to give it a bad review. As far as I was concerned, it was the worst one of the bunch. So this time round, like having no expectations at all, I actually took a lot more away from it. I enjoyed it. Again, it still doesn't have much of a reason to exist in the sense that it is a shot-for-shot remake. So why? But when I take it on its own terms, there are things I really like about it. Julianne Moore, William H. Macy, Viggo Mortensen. I think all three of those do better jobs with their characters. Like I've seen the 1960 Psycho numerous times. I can't even remember really what the guy who played Viggo Mortensen's character in the original brought to that role. Yet, because of Viggo, because what he brings to a character, what he puts in, I get more from the guy. I feel like he's an actual character. I remember him. I think that there is a difference between shooting black and white and shooting color, and that presents different challenges. And I think that the color palette in this film is actually quite beautiful. There's some really nicely shot scenes with regards to the cinematography and the color that they inject into scenes that originally were black and white. And let's not forget that Alfred Hitchcock would have shot Psycho in color. He wanted to shoot it in color. The only reason that he shot it in black and white was to get past the censors. You know, the censors, the people at the top were like, we don't know about this. There was already a big outcry when it was announced that Robert Bloch's book was going to be adapted because the book dealt with so much heinous stuff in it. People were like, no way. And the censors were like, look, don't know about this. Hitchcock said, I'll shoot it in black and white. He didn't want to. So, you know, it's like people who come with this illusion that, oh, why are you putting Hitchcock's classic black and white film into color? It's just like, you know, he shot it in black and white for a reason. Yeah, and it wasn't a creative one.
Do you want to see chocolate syrup? Because that's what it was.
Yeah, it's like he shot it in black and white because it's the only way he could get the film released. You know, it's not because that's what he wanted. It wasn't some artistic expression on his part. So let's get to see it in color. I don't mind that. I'd like to see Psycho in color. Yeah, great. We've seen it in color, but you know, it isn't as good as the original, obviously, because it isn't original. It's just a copy. But I think people are too hard on it. I like the visuals on it. I like the performances, and I think that the technology, and this is a purely objective comment. This has nothing to do with subjective reason at all. I don't think. On a purely objective level, there are shots in this that are simply better than the original. And that doesn't have anything to do with Gus Van Sant being a better filmmaker than Alfred Hitchcock. It's simply that the advancements in technology allow him to do the things that Hitchcock envisioned but wasn't quite able to pull off. You know, you think about the opening shot with that tracking shot, right through the city, straight in through the window. Hitchcock presents that as an idea through fades and transitions and stuff, but it's not one take, it's not one shot. You know, it's a series of shots that are kind of sandwiched together, and you get the idea. But the technology wasn't there. Whereas you look at it in the opening of the remake, it's a seamless move into that room. So there's things like that where, yeah, he's repeating the shot, but he's improving it. He's making it better because of the technology at his disposal. So,
Bryan, how did Hitchcock pull off the spinning shot, the pull back from the eye when in the shower scene when she's on the ground and we're spiraling and pulling back?
I can't actually remember, to be honest.
I remember thinking, how the hell did he do that in 1960?
Yeah.
Never mind. You're good for nothing, Bryan. Thanks. Hey, Cody, this is your channel. Why don't you do some talking?
It's quite simple, actually. What Hitchcock does is he put it into Adobe Premiere. There's this rotation thing, and he just sets a little time lapse.
you just spin the image, man. You just got to time it.
Like the thing that I find most impressive in that scene, in either version of the films, is just how long the actress is able to stare towards camera without blinking, because they do it for quite some time. There you go. I like Anne Heche. I know Cody's not a fan at all of Anne Heche, but I know she's had quite a troubled history, and I do think a lot of that kind of feeds into.
I don't even know exactly what it is. It's not like she's a bad actress. It's just something about her. I don't know if it's the short hair, if she's got like that I need to speak to the manager haircut, and it's just like it's just something about her. She just seems like a bitch. And every time I see her in a movie, the one time that I've actually enjoyed her, she was on Nip Tuck for like 2 or 3 episodes where she was trying to go into witness protection and had to get her nose done to escape her husband, and she was really good. But any other time I've seen her, for whatever reason, it just, I mean, you look at John Q, she's a bitch in that. She's the whole reason the whole thing happens, and just any movie I've seen her in, I'm just like, I don't like you.
Yeah, she's...
I like her as the crazy lady, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, yeah.
She's not cool in Donnie Brasco either, that's for certain.
Still not seen that film.
Bryan.
Oh, whoa.
I've got it, but I've just never got around to watching it.
We all have one of those. I have dozens.
Emily has
hundreds.
I buy more movies than I can actually physically watch. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's you talk like that's
Sounds
something
about
new.
Right there with you.
Gotta feed the vein.
Yeah. Five more sale. If I don't get it now, the steelbook won't be available.
Day one, 10 a.m. I gotta be there.
There's only one left. I fucking told you.
Cody, did you say pro?
I opened it up.
Oh,
I'm somewhere in the middle with it. Like I have no reason to really ever watch it again if I'm not doing for some creative reason putting it in. I'll always just put in the original. But I don't think it's a horrible movie. Like people put it like worst movie ever or one of the worst movies ever, and I'm like,
yeah,
no, not quite. But there's a few things that I liked better about it. A couple of the performances, and then I lean on the end of what's the point? You know what I mean? So it's
going to be higher than a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies on my list.
I can tell you.
Spoiler. Oh, Nazgoat2345, $2 in the super chat. Thank you. Is wearing a trench coat to the Joker a bad look? I don't know. Just make sure you're not packing anything. You know, that's my advice.
I would say you might ruin a lot of people's movie experience because the screen's going to be here and they're going to be like,
yeah, don't make other people anxious, man. Like, you know, just enjoy the show.
This whole Joker thing I wish movies like this we could just enjoy them for what they are and people didn't have to make a gigantic political deal out of it. Like it's the whole fucking country's going to be, or the whole world for rather is going to be under siege because Joaquin Phoenix plays a character that apparently murders somebody. Like we haven't had murder in movies all fucking year long.
Yeah, it's Taxi Driver. It's Taxi Driver in the DC universe, guys. Let's this isn't the first time. Let's all calm down. But yeah, don't. I would advise against making your.
I'm sure he's joking.
Yeah, no, right, obviously.
If you're not, no.
Yeah, if you don't want people talking on their cell phone in a theater, don't make them uneasy about your appearance. Is the best advice I could give. When are we getting a Blu-ray update, Cody?
God, I gotta do one of those too. This week. Yeah. I've mapped out my entire October and I have vastly overbooked myself.
So is are we gonna rank these, or are we gonna like dangle it and say come back on Halloween? Like how do we wrap this up?
We can rank the Psycho franchise by itself. Yeah, me and Bryan already have, so it's not like it's a secret.
Yeah.
CP, I guess you can go first since you didn't.
Am I going bottom to top?
Yeah, worst to best.
3, 4, remake, 2, 1.
Mine is remake, 4, 3, 1, 2.
Mine is the same as CP's, except you need to just switch Psycho 3 and 4 around.
So 4, 3, remake, 2, 1? Huh.
Yep.
There you go. Heard it here. Second.
Watch the guitar.
It's not like it's one of those lists too where the rankings it's not like this huge. I mean, from Psycho 1 and Psycho 2 it's a decent drop to the rest of them, but it's not like trying to rank, like when I try to rank the Friday the 13th or Halloween where there's like, okay, you have the F's and then you have the D's, then you have like 1C and there's a couple A's. This one's just kind of like really good, pretty good, decent.
Yeah.
Decent. And there's not like an obvious. Yeah. And like Bryan said about, the 2 and the 1, there's not really. If you say 3, 4, or the remake is your worst, it's not like any of those answers are really overly offensive to me. Yeah. So it's not like, how the hell is that there?
Yeah, when I did my first draft for 31, I was like, wow, I have a lot of Psycho movies ahead of a lot of a different franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some interesting comments from cinephiles this October.
This should be a fun one because I think we're all gonna be all over the
I
place.
was getting some crap from you when I was saying that.
Who?
You know, when I was talking.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh
you.
yeah, because what is it? You like 3D, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D.
No, I'm talking about the fact that I
Psycho.
like the Psycho movies so much that I wouldn't put any of the TCM movies above any of the Psycho movies, and you were like, oh, it is a Psycho fanboy.
I think we're still picking on you about whenever you were having that massive list, and then it was like all the big three, and then you had Psycho, and like all four of the Psycho movies were in your top 6 or something like that.
Isn't there a master list where like three?
And you had Candyman.
Three Critters are in the top 20.
Psycho 4.
Critters 3, 19, huh? Okay, Bryan.
Oh man. Don't ever change, Bryan.
Yeah, stay tuned for the interesting 2020 version of 31 and 31.
Yeah. Film one with the beard and one without the beard. Like do half video, like film 1, 5, 15, and like 30 with the beard, and then the rest of them clean shaven.
I do just want to address because James Hester has mentioned the TV movie from 1987, Bates Motel, and I do believe I'm the only one who's seen it.
We couldn't get it.
Yeah. We almost included it, but then you watched it and you were like,
Yeah. I was just no. It's
a pilot, right?
It's not a movie. Yeah, it's a pilot episode for a TV show that never got off the ground. It basically didn't get past pilot season, so they kind of wrapped it up in a bow with some bookended nonsense on it and threw it out as a made-for-TV movie. But it wasn't. It was a pilot episode for a crap TV show, and it is absolute bollocks.
Nick, $2 in the super chat. Thank you. Thoughts on Hopkins' Hitchcock flick, guys?
Haven't seen.
I like
Is that with Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hate that. Yeah.
I liked it. I liked it quite a bit, actually. And it was reasonably faithful to a lot of the stuff that went down. Obviously, a lot of embellishment there as well. But, yeah, it was...
it was a good time.
If you're a fan of Hitchcock and a fan of Psycho, then it's definitely a film worth watching, I think.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. 2 hours. We talked about 5 movies for 2 hours.
Pretty good. Keeping it tight. There you go, Bryan.
So have we figured out the top stream when that's happening?
I mean, we had plans to make plans for this weekend, with the release of Joker. I guess we could see. I mean, this weekend, possibly, if everything can line up.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll hammer out the details on time and everything, I guess, a little bit later. I'm still not sure how my Saturday's looking, and I don't know about you guys, but
yeah.
Hopefully this weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe even Sunday if we have to.
I just hope it's something that when I get home I wanna talk about it and spoil it. Like,
I haven't heard anything to say the contrary of that. My buddy Tyler just saw it last night, and he's already declared it as #1 movie of the year by a mile. And he's like a cinephile. Like, he's the guy that goes to the festivals. And, I think last year, what was the big movie that almost won Best Picture that was only on Netflix last
Roma?
year? Roma, yeah. I think Roma was his #1 last year. He's one of those guys. So you walk out of not quite. He's balanced, but anyway, one of those movie fans walks out of Joker and says, "Nothing's beating this." So I'm trying not to get
I don't,
overhyped.
like I'm gonna try to
Trying my
forget that
best.
statement altogether because I don't.
I keep hearing how disturbing it is and how violent it is, and I'm just like, wow. Like I'm curious for the movies that we watch if it's gonna phase me
Yeah,
at all. Like
yeah,
when people really hammer down, it's so disturbing. I'm like, we'll
yeah.
see.
Throw in Serbian film. Get back to me.
Uh,
No,
some neat Nirankari says, Brian, what's a movie you absolutely adore but Cody demolishes?
how much time do you have?
Just one. Huh?
You might be
Usually the
better equipped
opposite.
to answer this question actually, because I know there's been some, but I can't. I'm struggling to remember.
I think it's
Um,
more it's more often it's the opposite. It's a movie that I adore that you demolish. I can't remember too many on the opposite side where you love it and I'm like, bleh. Um, I don't know.
oh,
Trying to think.
I'm sure there has been.
I don't know about adore and demolish, but we were certainly on opposite ends of the earth with Justice League. Um,
You mean 5 out of 5
Let's
Justice
not.
League?
Oh, shut up! Flipping excuse. I've told you since that it's now a 3.5. So just shut up.
Bryan,
Shut
the
it.
originator of the flip flop. Not even that's original.
Flip
oh
flop.
man.
Just had a bit of Lee rubbing off on
I
me, that's all.
tried to not say a name, but you.
I'm trying to think of one a movie that you love that I demolish. I don't know. I did not like Life. I know you're a big fan of Life.
Yeah, I like Life quite a lot.
I didn't demolish it necessarily. There's not really one on opposite extremes like that. I think with me and Brian, it's more so like it's brought in a little
Blake
bit.
says Seed of Chucky.
Ah, thank you, Blake.
Yeah.
And
But
Brian, you're fired again.
well, still, you're talking about adore versus
Well-
demolish. I don't adore Cedar
Doesn't
Chucky.
matter.
I'm
Doesn't
telling
matter.
you, when we do
Demolish is here, and I'm still way back here. Adore, if you bring Adore into,
Yeah.
you know,
You're moving the
mildly
scales, yeah.
enjoyed, still a scale.
yeah, but
I was mildly amused by Cedar Chucky to the point where it's got certain sense of charm for me. That's about it.
when
So,
we do
yeah,
the 31 on 31 debrief stream, that's you might want to pop some popcorn for that
You're
one
gonna,
because
you're gonna screw our average on that movie. We have 31, 31, and 12.
12. Yeah. What's
It's like it wasn't CP, wasn't it you last year? You were like, "Am I the only one that didn't put Freddy's Dead
Yeah.
at last?"
Yeah.
All the rest of us were in unison.
yeah. Halloween Resurrection was my bottom. Well, I had it.
The
It
Freddy's
was
Dead.
30 for me, so you know, the average wasn't ruined. So I'm curious to see where Seed is because you've got at least 6 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, at least 6 that are going to be the bottom third.
I'm gonna have to rewatch, and I hate the fact that I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to rewatch Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation to truly see what my 31 is, because I really despise Seed of Chucky, but I can at least watch it and not want to hang myself. There's The Next Generation. I can enjoy McConaughey. Everything else is like acid in the eyeballs.
Oh,
So I don't know. It's I'm gonna have to reassess, and Seed of Chucky
There's-
might win by a nose to get to 30. I
there's
don't know.
nothing on this planet that is going to make me watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre film again. I'm done. I'm done with that franchise. As far as the ones that we've already had, my ranking is complete. If you want to know what the bottom 8 films will be on my 31 on 31, just go and check out my Texas Chainsaw rankings. So, boom. That's pretty much the opening of my 31 on 31 video as well. So,
yeah.
Good times.
I can't imagine that the collection will be worse than any TCM film. So that's
The collection of movies.
Yeah, the collection of movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those last couple franchises, I don't know if you haven't seen them. You might surprise yourself.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Child's Play gets a little messy. Oh no, wait. Got a Seed of Chucky's there. Scream. Three's a little sloppy, so who knows? Maybe.
Have you released
No,
your
not
teaser
even
for
close.
Yeah,
Scream
that's
yet?
why I said that. I'm desperately trying to move the dirt around that. We just somebody let something loose, and I'm like, oh,
Sometimes forget that we're no longer in a private
yeah.
conversation.
29 days, everybody.
Yeah. Oh man, gotta love it. Oh shit, we're still live. Oh
It'll be
man.
fun. I guarantee. Some of us might have similar numbers, but like averages are just going to be so wasted. Like
Oh yes.
our bottoms might be kind of similar, but middles to tops I think are really going to be really really different.
Our bottom two and our top three will be similar.
Right,
Everything else is gonna be fucking
right,
chaos.
right.
I don't think our bottom two are going to be similar.
Oh yeah, you're right. Our top three. Well, no, not even our top three because oh man, nope, nope.
This
Because
is going to be
I'm thinking about what
absolute.
my number one is probably going to be, and I already know it's not even close to number five for Bryan. So
Oh,
oh man,
oh, oh, yeah, yeah. This is going to be exciting. I'm more looking forward to discussing it afterwards because yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. Well, if only just to watch YouTube bicker because I know you're pretty far apart.
hmm
Fun times.
absolutely. All right, guys. Any final thoughts on the Psycho franchise? We're about 4 minutes away from hitting that 2 hour mark.
Mm.
Other than to say, as you know already, think that with perhaps the exception of Alien, which is as much sci-fi as it is horror, so with regards to just straight up horror slasher franchises, I think it's a hard one to beat because it's just so consistently, I don't think there's a bad film among them. And when you look at all the other big ones, they all have those absolute stinkers amongst them. The Freddy's Deads, the Jason X's, the Halloween Resurrections. This doesn't have that. I think Psycho
Scream?
remains pretty consistent. Scream is up there as well. That remains pretty consistent. I think we'll find that is quite high up as well in my rankings of franchises. So yeah, I think Scream is probably the one that comes closest to Psycho. So
Yeah. I'll reserve my thoughts. I've you guys did all your stuff publicly. I tried to save everything I have to say about the Psycho franchise, if only for the fact that I just recaught up in the last week, 10 days or so. But my 31 on 31 video, I'll discuss a little bit further. It's probably stuff you heard me say tonight anyway. But yeah, it's smattered all over my list. I'll say that much.
Stay tuned. That's all I can say. Hold on to your butts, people. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of you guys in here chatting away at Psycho. It was a good franchise to go back over and review. I know I enjoyed it, and we planned well in advance that all three of us were going to have to get together and chat about the whole franchise. So it was a lot of fun. Keep your eyes peeled for 31 on 31, and I guess I'll go around the horn. CP, you working on anything? Anything coming out soon?
Emily and I will have some sort. We do vlog stuff for Patreon for the Joker. Yeah, some stuff is Patreon exclusive. Some stuff we're probably gonna squeak out on the channel. Other than that, I've been getting a little full of myself. Last year on 31 and 31, I did like an intro. I've already started working on the intro for this year's, and for no apparent reason. I'm just putting video clips and voiceover, and it's just a ranking. I don't know. I'm really excited this year, so I'm trying to devote a lot of October to exclusively producing this 31 on 31 video. But we're
Awesome.
talking Joker. We're talking Joker in a couple of days.
Bryan?
Yeah, I've got a ton of reviews that have been on the back burner for ages that I recorded ages ago. And October, it seems, is going to be the month for churning them out. So this week, all this week, is going to be Evil Dead week. So review of each film and then a ranking. And then next week is Terminator week. I'm going to be putting out all the Terminator reviews. I don't know if I'm going to be doing Genesis, just because I've already reviewed it once on my channel when it originally came out. Yeah, I'm not the revisited kind of guy.
Except for Justice
I'll probably
League.
just except for Justice League. Yeah. So I'll probably just go do the first four and then a ranking. Obviously, review the new one when that comes out. And I've got the Alien series coming as well. I'm gonna be doing them, which I kind of ended up doing mostly because I'm doing a David Fincher series, which. Yes.
When I think David Fincher, I think the Alien franchise.
I think I've got to. I want to review all David Fincher's films, and I needed to do Alien 3 as part of that, and I thought I can't review Alien 3 without having first reviewed Alien and Aliens, so I figured I may as well just review the Alien franchise. So I've done that. So yeah, that's just a few of the things coming up, along with plenty of other stuff as well. So.
Awesome. Well, I have a packed-ass month of October, and I'm praying I can get it all out. I've already announced previously that I was going to be doing Evil Dead. I already have those filmed. I just need to edit them, so they're going to be coming out. I'm going to try to get at least one of them out this weekend, but it's not going to be back-to-back. It's going to be spread throughout the month. I got Breaking Bad week pretty much all next week, where I'm going to review all 5 seasons, then review El Camino, and then do a Breaking Bad ranking. I'm also going to be reviewing all of the Romero of the Dead movies, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, all of that. Zombieland 1 and 2 for when that comes out. And I'm trying to fit in Reanimator. I've already announced it before realizing how packed this month was going to be. If anything gets dropped for the month of October, it might be that, but I'll definitely pick it up in November. But I have a lot. And also Terminator. So I reviewed Terminator, dropped that yesterday. Every Tuesday leading up to the release of Dark Fate, I'm releasing that with Sean Chandler. And apparently my buddy Durbin from Durbania is doing it every Tuesday, too. We didn't even talk about it, so I'll probably be plugging him at the same time. So you're going to have all 3 of us doing reviews for the Terminator franchise. So a lot of stuff this October, all culminating into 31 on 31. So, yeah, it's going to be a tiring month. The 31 on 31 is probably going to be like, and number 5 is... yeah, so it's going to be busy. And then I'm sure we'll have Autop stream here and there where we're planning on doing it this weekend. I'm sure we'll have at least one more before the end of October, so we'll see how that goes. But yes, busy month of October for all of us, it sounds like. So thank you guys for joining us. Keep rocking on with the Psycho reviews and all the comments we've been getting. I know I've been getting quite a few, and a lot of you guys really like that franchise and like seeing us kind of tackle some of these more classic franchises, getting away from the 80s a bit. So next time we tackle a franchise, we'll try to do another one of these compendiums, however you want to pronounce it. Everybody likes to argue about it. Everybody likes to argue.
Dead Poet Society.
Yeah, everybody likes to argue about it whenever I have one of these. They're like, it's pronounced this because one of us said it this way, and then one of us will say it that way. It's actually this. So, little inside joke there.
Seize the day.
Compendium, yeah. All right. I have nothing else to say. So,
guys, I have content that isn't me bitching about drama on my channel. So if the thousands of you that like to watch that would like to watch me talk about movies, I encourage you to do so, because
you just got to seize it. When you do a review for Reanimator,
just got to break into drama. So this is what I thought of Psycho 3. Anyway, have you heard about so-and-so? Yeah. So today's today's edible panties flavor is lemon because it's tangy and salty.
Now I just have an image of somebody coming down and coming up.